Hi, thank you for being in this interview. Can you please give a short introduction for yourself?
So my name is Rich, or Richard, I guess if you want to be formal. I'm 18 and I my hobbies include editing videos and streaming occasionally. I don't know what else to say here, so yeah, that's me.
Would you describe yourself as a superhero slash comic book fan? And if so or if not, why?
Um, I wouldn't really describe myself as a comic book superhero fan because I don't know. I don't tend to like read comic books that much. Like I wouldn't if I saw a comic book sitting on a bookshelf or something, I wouldn't like pick it up and read it. I don't know. There's just I don't tend to read them as often as someone who would call themselves a comic book fan would. So I guess not. I know the superheroes, like I know Batman and Superman, Spider Man. The major ones. But I wouldn't like go into a store and pick up a comic book. Essentially,
Would you describe yourself as a superhero slash comic book movie fan? And if so or if not, why?
um, I guess I would describe myself as a comic book movie fan. I guess that's how you'd say that. I feel like the action in comic books, you can read it and you can imagine it yourself, but they really tend to bring these scenes alive when you go into a movie. You can sit down for a couple of hours rather than reading through like hundreds of issues of a comic. It can be kind of overwhelming going back to that. It can be sort of overwhelming to like read through an entire comic book series. Um, but when you're watching a movie, you've got maybe two other movies in the series to go through. And if you're really interested in a certain hero, like I personally like Spider-Man. So if you're interested in Spider-Man, you can just go through the Spider-Man movies, and there's quite a few, and they definitely try to appeal to the fans of those heroes as well as attract newcomers. So yeah, I'd say I'm a fan of superhero movies, although I'm not like a diehard fan, I guess. The thing is, as much as I love watching these movies, I wouldn't go out of my way to like watch them day one or something like that. If I saw them on TV, I'd sit down and watch them. But I wouldn't go out of my way to see something day one. If my friends wanted to see it, I'd be down for that. But yeah, just I wouldn't like go out of my way to like see them as soon as they're released. And I've got to give my opinions. I like them, but I wouldn't say I'm a diehard fan. Essentially.
What do you think they could improve in comic book slash superhero movies?
What could they improve? What could they improve? Um. Okay, I guess something they could improve. It isn't really something I think about a lot because you've got a variety of different movies, but I guess one thing they could improve is even though there's a large variety of movies, they kind of tend to follow the same structure. You've got your hey, here's this hero, here's how they're doing, or here's an introduction. And then it goes into here's, a plot device which is coming towards them, and oh no, they're going to have to sort out this plot device, and epic fight scene, and then it ends. It could sort of break away from this formula a little bit. I mean, sure, it's a formula which will work, sure, but I feel like having a different dynamic maybe could definitely help improve on superhero movies. I feel like Infinity War and the fact that there's going to be a follow up to that could definitely help change things a little bit. Yeah, I feel like the general structure of superhero movies is kind of the same for all of them. Like, if you look at them from a general perspective, they don't really change that much. So maybe something could just be there to just throw a wrench in the formula, and that might improve on things a little bit.
What do you think about friendships in superhero slash comic book movies?
Friendships are existing in superhero movies. I feel like that's something which isn't really addressed a lot. Superheroes would have friends. Yeah. I feel like you're more likely to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend than friendships. If you have another superhero, they either tend to butt heads and then become friends, or they butt heads and then they become, you're alright. I feel like friendships could be developed a bit more in films, because you don't really see friendships that much in superhero movies. You kind of tend to see the main hero and see other people associated with the main hero, and that's kind of the dynamic. But, most of these heroes are human or humanoids, so of course they'd have friendships. In fact, one series which does this very well is Guardians of the Galaxy. That has very big friendship aspects to it, and you can tell this ragtag team of heroes is, they're friends. And I feel like, yeah, you should definitely have more friendships in your films. Everyone has friendships, and seeing these guys get along and, punch each other in the face, flying across the room when, they do something which they get annoyed about, that's funny, that's humor, and yeah, they definitely expand on friendships a lot more than what currently exists in superhero movies.
What do you think about romance in comic book / superhero movies?
Romance is... I wouldn't call it I think it's overdone in movies in general. Some of them feel a bit forced. Man of Steel, I'll touch upon. In Man of Steel, you see Ken Clark has his girlfriend. Where did that come from? It feels like some of these, they have to have a girlfriend for, that romance dynamic. And, there's going to be this girl who they're interested in, and they have to go along with that dynamic. If friendships are overdone, or, if friendships are underdone in films apart from Guardians of the Galaxy, I feel like romance is overdone. As such, you don't need romance to be, a essential part of a film. You don't need this dramatic romantic tension always occurring in films. You could have other aspects being the main focus. There seems to be loads of films where here's that climactic part where they kiss. It can exist, sure, but I guess this is a part of films overall. It feels a bit overdone, and in certain films it can definitely feel a bit forced.
What do you think about familial relationships in comic book / superhero movies?
So, family-like relationships, they exist. I mean, they seem to be a plot device, Your family relationships tend to be little more than a plot device in superhero movies. Take Batman's parents being murdered, him being orphaned, being I must solve all crime in the city. That's his plot device. You've got Spider-Man, his uncle dying. That's his plot device. They can be so much more than a plot device. They can be, imagine a superhero family, like The Incredibles. That's one example of it where, you've got the family dynamic. You've got brother and sister maybe quarreling in the middle of a major argument or major, fight scene or something. That's something which a brother and sister would do. And, family just being, my mother is in danger, I must help her. That's, family seems to only exist to be the plot device or, a major purpose for that superhero to exist. And I feel like, you could develop them a lot more. You could maybe... Yes, it can be a crutch, but it could also be a help. Maybe a hero doesn't want to even be a hero, and then the family's like, no, you can do so much, you're amazing. Or maybe a new hero arrives on the scene, and it's the family member who's like, no, I believe in you, you can do this. Family just tends to be there when it's needed, when in actual fact, you could have it exist at all times. And it could be a lot more wholesome than it currently is in films, I feel. Especially superhero films.
Would you have interest in a documentary that looked into the absence and use of father figures in comic books / comic book movies? And if so, What would you like for a documentary that covers this subject to look into?
I think that could be interesting, actually. Yeah. I feel like, actually, in general, if you look at action-based movies and stuff, father figures are not really there. You see the mother figure a lot more than you see the father figure. I feel like it could, if a documentary was that, if it did happen, you could analyze, I don't know, you can analyze, like, say, the fact that the father figure seems to die, and that's, like, the major catalyst for the superhero to fight, essentially. The mother figure tends to be there more so than the father figure. Maybe that's why they tend to be more action-based or something like that. Father figures don't tend to have major roles in films, and why is that? That could cover something like that. You could also tackle some father figures tending to not be good father figures. Take Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where Star-Lord's father is, like, this big planet or something, but he's a dick. You can cover why father figures are just there for being even antagonists. I feel like father figures tend to be antagonists. This isn't comic books, but Star Wars has Darth Vader being the father figure of Luke Skywalker, the actual father, but also, he's there to kill Luke or bring him to the dark side. They always tend to be evil. And in fact, father figures in general of fathers tend to be absent more so than mother figures. Just like, oh, here's your mum, or here's your motherly figure for this story. And then the father figure tends to be, oh, well, you're a guy, you don't need a father figure. I feel like it could analyze quite a lot of those aspects, and I'd definitely be interested in seeing, if there's a trend or something in father figures not existing or existing in comic books as such. I mean, I haven't really seen them other than your father's dead, now you're a superhero. So, yeah, I feel like that could be something that I'd be interested in watching or reading.
Thanks for doing this interview, Rich.
Thank you for having me.